A battered little car worth barely $500 rolled onto the starting line while million-dollar machines gleamed beneath the desert sun, and every camera ignored it. The wealthy spectators laughed. The racing experts shook their heads. A powerful CEO dismissed it with one careless glance and called it a waste of space. But before the blazing afternoon ended, that forgotten car would cross the finish line first, expose a lifetime of pride, and change every heart that had underestimated the quiet single father who built it with nothing except broken tools, endless sacrifice, and love for his little daughter. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still matter in this world, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing family and community. By the time the morning sun had climbed above the endless desert hills, every team had already claimed its polished place inside the racing paddock. Expensive transport trucks reflected golden light across the sand while engineers in matching uniforms hurried around vehicles that cost more than most families would earn in several lifetimes. Every sponsor expected glory. Every camera searched for celebrities. No one noticed the faded pickup truck pulling an old trailer carrying a weathered compact car whose paint had almost disappeared beneath years of scratches. The little vehicle looked tired, forgotten, and hopeless, but its owner treated it as though it were priceless. That owner was Callum Mercer, a widowed single father whose hands carried permanent scars from years spent repairing engines in a tiny roadside garage outside a quiet desert town. Every dollar he earned disappeared into school supplies, groceries, rent, and caring for his 8-year-old daughter, Eliza. When customers threw away damaged parts, Callum carefully collected anything that could still be repaired. Every bolt, every spring, every cracked panel became another piece of a dream that no one else believed could exist. Eliza had grown up watching her father refuse bitterness despite losing almost everything. She remembered happier days only through old photographs of her mother smiling beside unfinished race cars. Before illness stole her life, she had believed Callum possessed extraordinary talent. She used to tell him that one day the world would finally notice what patience could create when money could not. After she passed away, those words became the quiet promise that carried him through every exhausting day. The Desert Crown Invitational was famous across the country. Winning it meant more than a trophy. It brought contracts worth millions, worldwide recognition, and enough prize money to transform an entire family's future. Callum had entered every year for 5 years, but officials rejected his application because his vehicle never met sponsorship expectations. This year a small rule change allowed independent builders to qualify if they passed technical inspection. It was the only opportunity he would probably ever receive. Across the paddock stood Helena Whitmore, founder and chief executive of one of Europe's largest automotive technology companies. Brilliant, disciplined, and admired by investors, Helena believed innovation belonged to those willing to spend heavily on perfection. Her newest prototype had consumed years of research and tens of millions of dollars. She expected nothing less than victory. When Helena walked through the inspection area, she briefly stopped beside Callum's tiny car. Its dented body, mismatched doors, faded wheels, and patched windshield looked almost embarrassing among the futuristic racing machines surrounding it. Without asking a single question, she quietly dismissed it as an amateur fantasy. Her team shared amused smiles before moving toward brighter cameras and larger sponsors. Callum noticed the glance but returned to tightening another bolt. Years of being underestimated had taught him something powerful. Opinions required no response when determination could answer better. Technical inspectors eventually reached his vehicle. They expected immediate failure but found something astonishing hidden beneath its humble appearance. Every mechanical system had been rebuilt with extraordinary precision. The engine had been handcrafted from recycled components balanced more accurately than many factory-built racing motors. Cooling channels were redesigned. Suspension geometry had been altered using careful mathematical calculations scribbled inside worn notebooks over many years. The little car looked old because Callum never wasted money replacing cosmetic parts. Everything important existed underneath. Officials approved the vehicle. The announcement spread through the paddock like an amusing joke. The race began beneath brilliant afternoon sunlight stretching endlessly across golden sand. Hundreds of thousands watched from grandstands while millions followed through live broadcasts. Powerful engines thundered as racers disappeared into the desert. At first, predictions seemed correct. Expensive prototypes surged ahead while Callum remained near the back, protecting his engine from unnecessary strain. Commentators barely mentioned him except to wonder how long the outdated vehicle would survive. Eliza watched from the family viewing area clutching the faded photograph of her parents. She never looked frightened. She had seen her father solve impossible problems her entire life. The desert, however, cared nothing for money. Heat intensified until shimmering waves distorted the horizon. Fine sand invaded cooling systems. Tires overheated. Sophisticated electronics began malfunctioning beneath relentless conditions no laboratory could perfectly recreate. One by one, glamorous contenders slowed. Callum continued steadily. His handmade cooling system functioned exactly as intended because he had designed it after years repairing engines that survived brutal desert summers. His simple mechanical controls ignored electronic failures, destroying more advanced vehicles. Every choice had been shaped by necessity rather than luxury. Halfway through the race, a massive dust storm swept across the course. Visibility collapsed. Several leading teams became trapped behind disabled vehicles. Callum remembered every hill, every hidden ridge, every shifting dune because he had spent countless weekends driving those lands with Eliza while searching for discarded scrap metal. The desert was not an obstacle. It was home. Without reckless speed, he quietly advanced. Meanwhile, Helena's prototype encountered disaster. A critical suspension component fractured after repeated impacts across uneven terrain. Her engineers stared helplessly at telemetry screens as years of investment vanished. Watching Callum's old car continue forward felt almost impossible to believe. Hours passed beneath the relentless afternoon sun until race officials announced something no one expected. The forgotten $500 car had entered first place. Silence spread across the grandstands before disbelief exploded into thunderous applause. News helicopters abandoned expensive favorites and rushed toward the tiny vehicle bouncing confidently through endless sand. Commentators replayed footage searching for hidden advantages, secret technology, or rule violations. There were none. Only brilliant engineering hidden beneath humble appearance. As the finish line appeared, Callum thought not about fame or money but about every birthday he had quietly apologized for buying smaller gifts, every evening he had worked while Eliza completed homework beside toolboxes, every promise made beside his wife's hospital bed that he would never teach their daughter bitterness. The little car crossed the finish line first. The crowd erupted. Mechanics cried. Reporters stood speechless. Eliza ran toward her father with tears shining beneath bright daylight, wrapping her arms around him before photographers could surround them. She did not celebrate the victory itself. She celebrated every unseen sacrifice that finally received the respect it deserved. Race officials confirmed the unbelievable result. The champion had arrived in a vehicle worth less than some competitors' tires. The $10 million prize belonged to Callum Mercer. Helena remained perfectly still while celebrations unfolded around her. Defeat hurt, but something else weighed even heavier. She realized she had judged another human being entirely by appearances. She had never asked about his journey, his family, or the years hidden beneath worn paint and patched metal. Later that afternoon, after interviews finally ended, Helena quietly walked toward the small area where Callum and Eliza packed their tools into the same old pickup truck that had carried them there. She noticed something surprising. Nothing had changed about them. There were no celebrations of wealth. No arrogance. No revenge. Only gratitude. Callum carefully folded every worn blanket protecting his tools because he believed waste dishonored difficult years. Helena looked at the little race car one final time. She suddenly understood that greatness rarely announced itself with polished appearances. Sometimes it arrived wearing scratches earned through perseverance. She admitted to herself that success had slowly convinced her that expensive solutions always defeated humble ones. Callum had shattered that belief without speaking a single angry word. Instead of offering excuses, Helena publicly congratulated him before every camera still present. She acknowledged that she had underestimated both the man and his creation. She announced that true innovation belonged wherever courage, intelligence, and integrity existed, regardless of wealth. The audience responded with heartfelt applause because genuine humility often inspires louder admiration than victory itself. Days later, companies competed to hire Callum, but he accepted only partnerships allowing him to remain present for Eliza's childhood. Money no longer controlled every decision. Time became the greatest treasure he could finally afford. He invested much of his prize into scholarships for young mechanics who lacked financial opportunities, remembering exactly how discouraging closed doors had once felt. His tiny roadside garage expanded into a training center where old tools became instruments of hope instead of reminders of poverty. Helena also transformed. She created programs welcoming independent inventors whose ideas previously would have been ignored because they lacked wealthy sponsors. Her company discovered remarkable talent hidden inside ordinary workshops across small towns, proving that innovation could flourish anywhere people refused to surrender. Years later, visitors entering Callum's workshop expected to find the famous championship car displayed behind glass. Instead, they discovered it parked outside exactly where customers could see it every day. The faded paint remained untouched. The dents stayed visible. He refused to restore it because every scratch reminded people that appearances rarely reveal true value. Children often asked why such a famous car still looked so ordinary. Callum simply smiled and encouraged them never to measure themselves by what others saw first. He wanted them to understand that the strongest engines are often built inside hearts that have survived disappointment without losing kindness. Eliza eventually grew into a brilliant engineer herself, inspired not merely by racing but by the quiet strength she witnessed throughout her father's life. She carried forward her parents' belief that compassion and excellence belong together. The legendary race became famous not because an inexpensive car defeated expensive machines but because an entire industry remembered the lesson forever. Pride had lost. Humility had won. Wealth had been humbled by perseverance. And one little girl had watched the world finally recognize the man she had admired all along. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Before you go, please leave a meaningful comment telling us this: have you ever seen someone underestimated because of appearances, only to prove everyone wrong through courage and perseverance? Your story might encourage someone else who is fighting a silent battle today. As the brilliant afternoon sun settled gently across the quiet desert, the little $500 car rested peacefully beside the road where its remarkable journey had begun. It had never needed luxury to become unforgettable. It needed only an honest builder, a loving daughter, unwavering hope, and the courage to keep moving forward when the world had already decided it would fail. And that is why the greatest victories are never measured by the price of what we own, but by the strength of the heart that refuses to give up.